Hi, good morning.
Hello.
So, we probably never thought we'd see the day when Microsoft would embrace open source in quite such a major way. And one of the interesting things that it's done this year is spin off a company called Microsoft OpenTech. And when I heard about this, I had a long call with them, and I decided that actually this was something that was worth talking about. It was interest to all of us to figure out what Microsoft were up to. So I'm really happy to have Gianugo with me. So can you tell us briefly, what is this new company?
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me here. It's really exciting that this is newsworthy to you. We think it's great stuff. We're having lots of fun. So Microsoft Open Technologist is a wholly owned subsidiary of Microsoft Corporation. It got funded 3 months ago, back in April. But it already shows a lot of deliverables when it comes to open source. We think that when it comes to open source code is really key, and what you deliver is actually what matters. Hopefully, we will have a chance to talk that through. It's a very nice place to be because we're doing a lot of initiatives around open source, open standards, interaction with communities.
Right.
And we've been actively seeking out feedback. So this is a great place to understand what are we doing good, what are we doing bad, how can we get better.
So it's kind of like an interface in that sense that is handling activity in open source and also activity in open standards.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, it's great to see this. You've spun it out into a separate company. Does this mean the rest of Microsoft doesn't have to bother to do open source anymore? You've spun off a little thing to do it?
No. Well, we already said that. This is really just about speed and agility in engineering, but this doesn't mean that all the open source and open standards effort happen in open technologies. It's quite the opposite. Open source is pervasive around Microsoft. I can just make a couple of examples. Our contributions to the Linux kernel, our work with Hadoop are happening in other places of the company. So Microsoft Open Technologies has a specific role. We're looking especially at those places where we really want to interact deeply with the community, engage in a more clearly defined manner, accept contribution, participate to open source project, and in a nutshell, make sure that we can deliver that speed and agility in engineering that is required. I love how James Governor put it, that it's really about being able to marshal efficiently engineering resources. This is, to me, what we're all about.
Well, to put some kind of color on this, then let's talk about an individual project. And I know one of the first things that you guys put out was a Redis port.
Yeah.
Why Redis? Yeah. And can you tell us a bit about how that's all working?
I love this question because it allows me to also go back in time and mention that Microsoft Open Technologies is actually the evolution of an existing group that was previously known as the Interoperability Strategy Group, led by Jean-Paul Lee, who was on this very stage 2 years ago. And this is the group that I joined a couple of years ago. And we were already involved in Redis. So when where this team became the core of Microsoft Open Technologies, then we had ongoing efforts, ongoing projects, and Redis was one of those. Going back in time, why did we choose Redis?
Yeah.
To me, this is all about developer choice, and I can give you many reasons. We can actually count them. Can we do a show of hands? Who thinks that Redis is a cool piece of technology? I'll see. Those are your reasons. I mean, we listen to developers, and we understand that they want to run Redis. They want to run Redis on Windows, so we are helping them with that.
So in some senses, it's, there's a popular technology catching on. Redis is one of them, Node is another.
Yep.
And if you don't have this thing running on all your platforms, Windows, very obviously, you're going to lose developer share. So is this perhaps, just a way of maintaining market share?
Well, I think that every company needs to listen to the market. And today, we know how important is the developer market. So this is one of our main audiences. And we want to be attentive. We want to be prompt. We want to be ready. So when you go back, you mentioned Node.JS. I mean, we can do another show of hands. Pretty much everyone. I will actually just point you to the job board. I walked by the job board this morning, and there's a lot of stuff about Node.js. Node.js is something that also really fits in our overall strategy. We announced that we are really thinking that JavaScript is important. It's important in Windows 8. It's important in the recently announced apps for Office. And it's important on the service side. So we see this technology, maps to our technology idea, gets our engineers excited, has a great developer reach. I mean, it's a slam dunk. Why wouldn't we do it?
I think it's a fair point. I mean, you guys historically have been all about developers. And
I won't do the dance.
Thank you. We'll all be very grateful for that. So it's an interesting signal, I guess, to see which open source projects you are picking up, because again, it's a signal about developers. Now, we talked about Node, and obviously there's the same thing going on there, and JavaScript is an important language for you. Let's talk about a bit again about Linux. So, one of the interesting things that I picked up in Mark's keynote was just offhand, oh yeah, and we can deploy this to Microsoft Azure, and he just kind of moved on. And I was like, what? Yeah. So he's got his, Ubuntu talking to Azure, and you now announced that in your cloud, in your Microsoft cloud, people can spin up Linux machines. Yes. Why?
Well, again, we want people to be able to run their Linux workloads in our cloud. We care about ease of migration, ease of deployment, developer choice. So Linux is part of the picture. So to us, enabling Linux is just another step in getting a wider reach, talking to all of those that are running mixed environments, and talking to all of those who think that Azure has actually a lot of cool features, and they want to take advantage of it, but they also won't be able to run their Linux workloads. So why not?
So in this sense, we're seeing like Microsoft stack up against Amazon there, and Rackspace and HP and so on, kind of on that playing field with multiple platform options.
Well, yeah. Although I think that we have some very interesting pieces in our cloud offerings that take us apart, so it's very specific. I think that we are one of the few with full infrastructure and platform as a service support, going up to software as a service support. We have a ton of add-ons to the platform. A lot of those are open source. We actually worked in the past 3 months, not only with open source, but with open source partners. I'll go back to what Tim said yesterday about adding to the ecosystem. So we work with the likes of CloudEnt, Lucid Imagination, Tengen. I want to mention also our Linux partner, Canonical, SUSE, of course, OpenLogic, Bitrock. We did a lot of work. We like to say that we play well with others.
That's great to hear. So we're getting close on time, but there's a couple of questions I wanted to ask. One thing that really is admirable about Microsoft is your R&D department, and pretty famous in that regard. Do you see some of the results of the R&D going directly into open source?
A lot of those. Actually, MSR does a ton of contribution to open source. It's just too many to mention. There is one that is close to my heart that has been announced recently, and it's called Project Mayhem. It actually lives at the Autocare Foundation. You really should check it out. It's one of those frameworks where you can connect events and devices together with no needs for programming skills, and it's building up a very nice community. They are building extensions and whatnot. So yeah, MSR is one of the coolest places in Microsoft indeed, and they are really serious about open source.
So just to kind of finish up, it's obvious that we're in a different world, and you rattled off all these touch points where you're dealing with open source and so on. Yet always when in our community, there are some image problems from Microsoft still. How do you think you're going to get past those?
Well, first of all, I think that we are making a lot of progress. I've been in the company for nearly 2 years now, and I already can see how the perception has changed and how we are having discussions that are moving to the actual technology level. Let's talk about code. At the end of the day, I think that's what matters. At the end of the day, I think that it's really understanding that code talks. And this is what we do. I mean, we can do all the slides. They can send me to conferences. I love being in front of people. But really what matters happens in the backstage. And luckily, it is in front of everyone. So The great thing is that you don't have to believe my words. You just need to go to msopentech.codeplex.com and see what we're doing. Go to GitHub, see our contributions that are all over the place. See what Microsoft is doing across the board. It's publicly archived mailing list, publicly archived code repositories. It's up there for everyone to see, and I really trust that we can get engaged in that kind of conversation where we're really talking about making great technology together.
Great. Well, thank you for your continued persistence, and thanks for joining me this morning.
It's always fun. Thank you.